In this lesson, we're going to continue building all of the pieces for the bridge for our guitar. All right, so we've got these pieces done, and let's go ahead and just kind of get those out of the way. Let's grab all of those, and we'll make a new layer down here, and we'll go ahead and hide that layer. And that'll just kind of get everything out of the way for us. All right, so if you take a look at this, you can see that we've got some pretty standard threads on this, and it does taper down flat down here, and this is a solid piece down here. And then we do go to kind of a hex opening right here where a Allen wrench would be fit into there, and you would turn it to tighten this thing. So as we start this, we'll go ahead and just start with a cylinder, just because I want to illustrate something here really quick. All right, I'll scale that in. So as we're planning this out, we want to kind of think ahead a little bit. Now, if we had 6 sides on this cylinder, you can imagine that would be really easy to cut this shape out of it. Let's rotate this just a little bit so you can see a little better. All right, so you can see it would be really easy to cut this shape out of it and blend it all back together. Now, if we had this cut out and we put a bevel on it, we know that we're going to have several edges coming off of here. We're going to have 3 edges for each of these corners from our bevel. Now, if we took our threads that we're about to make and we had the corresponding number of edges, then it would be a lot easier to blend all of that information together. So we've got one going straight through here. We've got our bevel right here, and we could blend that into another one here, one into there. So what we're going to want to do is when we build our threads, we'll think ahead on what we need to do with this, and we'll do 18 spans across so that we can blend all that information in. All right, so to start this off, what we're going to do is we're going to go to Create Polygons, and we're going to make a helix. All right, we'll take that helix and we'll bring it up here. And we're not going to adjust anything as far as scaling it and stuff like that. We're going to use all the information for the input node on this. All right, so we'll go in here and we'll kind of discuss what some of these things are. So this first one, coils, this is the amount of coils that are in it. You can see we can increase it and decrease it. Okay, so we'll adjust that a little bit later once we get this stuff scaled down a little bit. Height is going to be the overall height of the thing. And then the width, of course, is going to be the width of it. So let's go ahead and we'll keep that at about 0.8. If I make this any smaller, it's going to fold in on itself. And we are going to get a bit of reduction on the size of this when we smooth it as well. So actually, that's probably a pretty good number. All right, let's adjust our height a little bit here. And what we want to do is we kind of want to go up to this point right here with it, because then this tapers up and we've got that hex thing up there. So that's kind of what we're looking at, somewhere around there. And as we adjust this again, we'll change that quite a bit. All right, the width. This is an important one. This is the one that specifies each one of these tubes, how big around they are. So you can see I can make those bigger, I can make them smaller. Okay. Just get this so you can see it just a little bit better here. We'll take this back down to 0.8. There, now we can see it well. All right, so this radius, you can see there, we get nice and big, really small. This is how we'll build our springs, by the way, back over here. So that's how we'll build those. All right. So we've got a good width on it. Our height looks a little bit off, but let's keep adjusting this. The subdivisions in the axis, this is the one that we were talking about that we want to be 18, or excuse me, that's going to be in the coil itself. So let's look at both of these here. Here's the axis. You can see we can go all the way down to 3, or we can have a ton in there. 3 is what we are going to want, by the way. You can see we get a nice point right here, and that's what's going to give us this little triangular shape right there. So that's the subdivisions in the axis, and the subdivisions in the actual coil. This is the one. You can see that we can take it larger or smaller or whatever we need, but again, we discussed that we needed that to be 18 on that one to correspond with this information. Now, you'll notice that none of these really line up, and I'm talking about these edges in here, and that's something that we're going to want to pay attention to while we do this, and you'll actually see that a little bit better in a minute here. What I want to happen is I want to get rid of this space in here. We're going to get rid of all of these faces in a minute, but we want this edge to line up with that edge. All right, and so what we're going to need to do here is we're going to need to adjust how many coils we have to pull those together. Now we'll have to adjust the height in a minute here. But you can see we're starting to get these lined up a little bit. And kind of the rule of thumb on this is if you use an even number, they will line up. So right now, for example, we have 12.5. If I did 12 in here, you can see that they line up perfectly now. So as long as you keep an even number in here, those are all going to line up for you. All right, we do need to adjust the height on this a little bit because again, we need this to go up to this edge right here. So this very topmost point needs to correspond with that. And this bottom one needs to correspond right here with this line. So it looks like we're fairly close. But of course, we do need to make sure that we have the correct amount of coils in here as well. So let's go ahead and adjust this just a little bit. Maybe we'll go like 2.4. That looks a little bit much. Maybe 2.25. Okay, that looks pretty close. Now we have 12 coils, and you can see that they are off just a little bit. So let's try 13 coils, and that looks pretty close. Okay, if we start there, we can see ours are just a little bit wider. So maybe 14. All right, so that looks a little closer. Let's try 15, and we're going the other direction now. So we're going to get this just as close as we possibly can. Let's see what happens if we go down 1. All right, so we're going the other way. Let's try 16, and that I think might be as close as we're going to get, because if we go back to 15, you can see that we're just a little shy there. All right, I think 14 is the number I'm going to go with on this one. I think that'll be close enough for that. All right, our height looks good. Our coils look good. Let's check this. You can see that we are going over this a little bit, and that's going to be based off of this radius number. So if I do 0.09, you can see that those get a little bit closer, 0.08. Okay, so we are apart on that now. I think I went the wrong way. Let's try 9 again. All right, let's try maybe 9.1. And it looks like 0.093 is going to be a good number for that one. All right, so there is the basis for what we're doing. Let's get rid of some of this information now. Let's check over here and make sure we're still good. We are. And we don't need this face right here. And there's going to be one down here as well. So we'll get rid of that one. And now I want to grab all of these interior ones and get rid of those. We don't need those as well. We're just going to build this outer shell. So I'm going to click on that one, and then I'm going to go up to this one up here, and I'm going to double click on this one, and it'll grab, well, sometimes. Let's try that again. Grab that one, and then we'll double click here. There, did it that time. So that grabbed that entire row in between the ones that I selected. So I'll go ahead and delete those. And now we need to get all of these ones in here merged together. So I'm going to grab all of these verts, and I'll go ahead and do a merge on that. And we can check this if we just hit the 3 key. Okay, everything looks nice and smooth in there. So that actually did merge everything correctly. All right, so that looks good. Let's go ahead and we'll delete history on this, and we'll center our pivot on this one. And in our next video, we'll go ahead and continue up getting the top and the bottom caps on this. In this lesson, we're going to continue building all of the parts for the bridge on our guitar. All right, so here's where we left off with our little screw that we're building here. And what we're going to do for this is we'll go ahead and do the top on this one. So we need to flatten this information out, and then we need to taper this thread as it goes around to the top of it. So I'll go ahead and double click on that edge just to select the whole thing. And then I'll deselect those two on the thread right there. So we've got this whole little spiral going right around the top there. I'm going to extrude this, and we need to flatten it out. So I'll snap to this point right here, like that. Okay, and then let's grab these verts right here, and we'll go ahead and merge those together. All right, so in order to pull this out into this shape, we're going to need another edge right here. So let's do that. We'll grab that, Control right click, entering utilities, and split that. Okay, so what's going to happen is this point right here needs to come to that one right there, and we can go ahead and merge those as well. And so now what we need to do is we just need to taper this down as it goes around there. We have all of these guides that we can utilize to do that. So we'll just start to pull this in like that. And we'll go to the next one. It's kind of a manual process to do this, but I haven't found any way to do it automatically. It doesn't take too long, and we've got 18 points here, so not that big a deal. All right, so we'll just continue around. Sometimes when you're doing this, you can get Maya, if I hit the arrow key, sometimes you can get Maya to pick walk through these. She's not doing it for me right now. There it is, like that. All right, so let's move that one in. A little unpredictable if she's going to do it or not. So sometimes you just need to select them on your own. All right, keep going around here real quick. Pull that over. Okay, just kind of keep an eye on how much you need to taper this in. We need to get it to stop over there. Okay, so we'll start getting this nice and small here. And then by the time we hit this one, we're down to nothing. So we can check this out a little bit now and make a few adjustments here and there where we need to. Again, we want a nice taper down on these. So maybe a little bit slower transition in here. Just a little bit there. All right, that's probably good enough. All right, so we've got all of this in here now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, let's delete history on it, and I'm going to duplicate it. And the reason I'm going to duplicate it is because we will end up using that one later on. We'll just, actually, we won't even have to fill in that cap because we won't see it. And so that will become this piece right here. We'll have to finish off the bottom of it as well, but that will save us a little bit of time there. All right, so we've got that going up to that shape now. So let's take a look at what we have here. All right, so there you can see the shape that we need to cut out of this. So let's go ahead and grab this edge right here, and I'll go to Mesh, and I'll fill hole. So that just fills all of that information in for me. And let's go back up to here, and I'm going to grab my split tool, and I'm going to split straight across like that. And what this will do for me is this will give me a center line in which I can put this piece in to Boolean out. All right, I'm going to make another cylinder, and I'm going to pull that up to here. All right, I'll scale that down a bit. And we can go ahead and snap to that point. We don't really have anything to snap to going this direction, but temporarily, if you want to type in 18 on that, you can then bring this up and you can utilize this information that we have setting here to get that centered close enough. All right, there we go. All right, so now to finalize this, we need 6 for that. And we'll go ahead and scale that in. And you can kind of look at this distance from that point to that point and kind of gauge how big this needs to be. So that looks pretty close. All right, let's bring this up. And we need to kind of check and see how far this dents in there. So let's look at a little reference here. So you can see it kind of goes down in a little bit, kind of at like a 45-degree angle. And then we can't really tell how far this goes. So we'll just eyeball it somewhere around there. All right, let's go back into here. And I think I'm going to turn on wireframe unshaded so I can see what I'm doing. And let's see how deep, and that looks fine. Again, we're eyeballing this anyway, so let's make sure that we have history off on both of these. And let's go ahead and do our difference. And you can see that it Boolean just fine, didn't give us the interior information. So let's go back to our Boolean node, change the classification to edge, and that will give us all of that information. All right, so let's go and split these in the appropriate places. Now remember, we did these so that we could bring in our bevels to those points. Whoops. All right, those ones look good. Let's take that one to that one. And finally, we'll take that one into that one. All right, so there you go. We've got that piece in there. Now we need to get this brought down just a little bit. So let's grab all of those faces, and we'll need these interior ones as well. Make sure we don't have any anything else selected. Okay, just look around there. All right, so what we need here is we need to pull this down a little bit to get that area where that thing kind of jutted down a little bit, that 45-degree angle that we saw right there. All right, so this all looks good. Now I think we can go ahead and start to get some bevel information in here. Now we don't want to get tension on here, obviously. And so what we'll do for this is we'll go ahead and do this interior one. And we want each of these, of course. Okay, so those all look good. And we want to make sure that we have all of those as well, or that'll get soft in there. And let's just see what we get if we just do those. So we'll do another little test here and see what happens. So we'll do our bevel, and we'll do 2 segments on that. And you can see that we're not really getting much of a bevel here. So generally that tells me that there's something wrong with our geometry at this point. And so we kind of broke one of our rules there. We didn't check it before we did anything. And you can see there's a lot of stuff going on here. Just some stuff that we need to merge together. Let's just grab all of these and we'll do our merge. Okay, it looks like it merged a few that we didn't want it to. So let's maybe do 0.002. And let's see what that gives us. Okay, and I think that took care of most of it. We do have these n-gons, obviously, but we'll fill those in a little bit. So I think that took care of most of it. Let's go ahead and grab all of these again. And let's see what we get. We just need to know if we need to continue this through the center or not, if we need to continue up there. And so that's kind of the test that we're doing here. All right, so there's 2 segments. And let's pull this down just a little bit and let's smooth this out. Let's see what we get. Okay, so you can see right here in the corners, these are just kind of folding over themselves, and that's not going to work out for us, obviously. And so we are going to need to continue this up a little bit. So I'm going to back up just a hint, and we're going to need these in there. And we'll have to fix this geometry once we're done, but that's why we made this 18 divisions, so that we could do that. So let's go ahead and bevel that. We'll do 2 segments. Okay, looks like all of this information is going to be good there, so we don't have to mess with any of that. And the rest of this looks okay. I mean, we do have these that we're going to have to redo, but that's okay. We'll just take this and we'll bring it up to there. And we'll take that one and bring it to there, and so that'll alleviate the tension that we have on these. Because right now, if we smooth this, we're going to get all of that weird tension on all of those points. All right, so in our next lesson, we'll go ahead and we'll finish cleaning up this bevel, and we'll get all of the bevels on these to hold all of those. So I'll see you in the next one. In this lesson, we'll continue on with all of the pieces for the bridge. All right, so here's where we are. We've got our bevel in here, and we've got a little bit of cleanup that we need to do to this. So let's go ahead and take a look at these right here and what we want to do. I'm going to grab my split tool. I'm going to go from here to here, and I'll go from there to there. And that gives us this extra edge right here that we can control delete. So nice and clean. And we pulled all that tension off of that corner. So that's a good thing. All right, so I'll continue around here and get rid of all of these. Just make sure you hit Control Delete when you do these, because if you don't, it's going to leave all of those vertices behind. All right, we'll get this one in. that, double click, get rid of that one. And I think we've got 2 more to do here. Grab that. It gets a little bit hard to see when it comes around here what this thing is doing. So that's why I just rotated around there. All right, then last but not least, we'll get this guy in like that, and we'll grab, now this one is a little bit different. So we're going to have to merge a few things together here. And I think what I might do to help that out is we're going to need this edge going all the way through. So I am going to split from there to there. And then I'm going to grab all of these points right here in the middle, and I'm going to merge those together. And then we can get rid of that one. Okay, and that gives us a nice point right there. We do have this edge in there, so we do technically have a quad right there at the moment. All right, so let's take a look at what all of this does. You can see nice clean geometry. That's working great. All right, so we have a little bit more that we need to do on this. And we do have this top pretty much done. We haven't done the bottom, but I'm going to go ahead and do that one off camera because it's exactly the same thing that we just did. The only thing that's going to be different is we're going to end up capping that one off. And so that will be the same that we use for, get my image plane up here. Sometimes you got to zoom out to get those. That'll be the same for this right here. We're just going to want to cap that information off. So same thing. You're just going to grab this edge right here. You're going to extrude it down. You're going to taper this down as it goes. So it will essentially be this without this Boolean in there. All right, so let's talk about going in and finishing off these, because obviously now these are nice and squishy and we want them to really hold all of those edges. So let's double click on both of those. Okay, and that'll take them all the way down, and that's everything that we need. Now, I'm not really sure what's going to happen here. I'm going to deselect that one. We're probably going to get quite a large mess right here that we're going to have to fix. So I'm just going to take those out of the mix. And let's go ahead and we'll do our bevel on here. Okay, gave us a small one in there. Let's go ahead and we'll do 2 on our segments. Bring our size up a little bit, and let's see what that does. Okay, that holds those pretty well. I like just having just a little bit of the shiny edge on there. All right, so let's see what we have up in this area, because again, we're going to get a fairly large mess. Now, you can see that we do have a few zigzags in there. So one of the things that I would like to try is to do a Control-A to go into our attribute editor. And we'll go into our poly bevel node, and I'm going to try using the legacy algorithm. And you can see that that actually did straighten all of those out. These weird zigzags, nice and straight now. So that's a little bit better. All right, so we've got a jumbled mess going on here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start to blend some of these together up here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to grab all of these edges and we're going to hit delete on them. Now, I didn't hit Control Delete because I kind of wanted to keep those around, and I'm just kind of looking now at how much that's altering the surface, and it's really not much. And so I think what I might do is go ahead and just get rid of all of this information. All right, so we've got basically all of those in there. I'm going to make sure we don't delete any that we need. So we've got all of that. Now, it would be nice to have this taper up there before I get rid of this. So actually, I am going to do that first just so we contain everything in the area. All right, so once again, let's go and delete everything that we don't want here. All right, and I'm going to control delete this time to get rid of everything. All right, now we can go ahead and split this again. And we do have our typical triangle right there. But we're going to see if we can't take care of that with this right here. So what I'll do is I'll take these outside ones, and we're going to split this right to the middle here and to the middle right there. So that takes care of that triangle. And now we have two edges right here, which is kind of inconvenient for us. We want an odd number. So I'm going to go ahead and take this one to right there, and then I'm going to take this point to right there, and then I'll get rid of these two interior ones that were merging together. All right, so everybody is split now. But by having an odd number on here, what this does for me is I can go from here, like right here in the middle, to right there, and then I can simply take this one to right there. And that gives us another quad right there and another quad right there. You may choose to bring this further in that direction. We'll see what it does when it smooths. So we'll hit 3. Okay, and that actually smooths out well. We are losing this up here a little bit, and so we are going to need one more bevel up on the top of this thing just to hold that. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll bring that all the way around. And let's go ahead and bevel that. We may need 3, we may need 2 on this. Let's see what 2 does for us. Okay, it's a little soft, but if you remember on here, it actually is a little soft up there anyway. So I do think that 2 would work just fine for us right there. All right, so that's going to do it for the top of that one. Let's go ahead and take this and we'll kill history on that. We'll freeze transform where it is. That's fine. And let's go ahead and take a look at what else we need here. Again, we're going to take this one and we're going to dupe it over here. We did duplicate one of them, and that guy's right here. And so what I'm going to do off camera for our next lesson is I'm going to go ahead and cap this off down here, and then I'm not going to cap this off, but I'm going to flatten it. We're going to leave it just like this. We're not going to change anything here because we're not going to see it. It's going to be inside of this piece, and it's going to be inside of this piece right here. So I'll go ahead and do the 2 of those off camera, and then when we come back, we'll go ahead and we'll do our screw head on this one. We're going to wait on the springs until we get this assembled because we're going to have to do them all very different lengths because these things are going to be staggered. So we'll wait until we put our scene together to do our springs. But we'll go ahead and come back in the next lesson and we will work on these screw heads. So we'll see you there. In this lesson, we'll continue to build on all of the pieces on the bridge for our guitar. All right, so here's where we left off, and you can see that these are finished. This one you can see just has an open top, and I just duped this and just deleted all of those faces and the bottom as well. And this will become this little piece right here. And we're not going to worry about positioning that, and we're not going to do the spring in this one as well, because once we assemble our final scene, those will all get put into place, and these have different widths, so we'll do that in that scene as well. Now this one, I changed a couple things on here, or I added a couple things rather. You can see that I added one loop right in here, and then I deleted every other edge so that we could get quads there. And then down on the bottom of this, you can see that I just capped it and I deleted every other edge to get quads in there. So this bottom is the exact same as the top, did the same taper right here and everything. So obviously I did that off camera because you already saw it on the top one. All right, let's take these and I'm going to right click on layer 1 and I'm going to add those selected objects just to get those out of the way. And let's go ahead and take a look at what we need to do for our last piece of the bridge, which is these screws. So I'm going to go into this reference here, and you can see this is the screw that we need to build. And nice round shape, kind of cuts in on the bottom there. Very flat here, 90-degree angles on the corners. Now, the key to this one, and I think where a lot of people fall short when they're trying to make screws, is they'll just put a plus sign in here. Now, it is a plus sign, but look at how rounded these inside corners are. And I think that's where a lot of people really fall short when they're building these. Now, when this extrudes down in, it does taper a little bit, so it does get a little bit smaller as well. Now, the other key to this one is that we get this width correct. This is going to be important that we get this width correct, or it's going to look a little bit strange as well. All right, so back in Maya, we're going to go ahead and start with a sphere. And we'll just move that out of the way there. All right, I'm going to scale this up a little bit and just kind of roughly place it somewhere in that neighborhood. And we need to determine how much geometry we actually need here. So this is going to get scaled down until we match that. So we're just going to squish that a little bit. Okay, and that looks good. We're just matching that. We'll pull this one in a little bit, but we want to make sure that we hit that edge. Now, we also want to make sure that we have an edge right here corresponding with this edge right there. So we're going to need a loop running right through that right there. And so let's see how little of geometry we can get away with here. So there's 9. Now, if I scale this up a little bit to where it needs to be, that line is really close right there. So I think that's going to be a good amount for us. We don't really care about this up here because all this is going to get deleted anyway. But I think that's going to be pretty good right there. So we'll run with 9. Now, up on the top of this, we need to figure out what we need as far as width on this. So let's take it down again to kind of the minimums, where if we did something like 8, we have a flat that runs down to there. Maybe I'll rotate this a little bit so you can see it. So if we went from that point to that point, very similar to what we did with our straight slotted screw. So we'll split from here to here and there to there. That's going to be pretty wide. And so we're going to want a little bit more than that. So we could try like 12. That still looks pretty wide. I think our next one is going to be about 16. Okay, so we've got a straight one there and a straight one there. So let's pull this over a little bit. That looks pretty close. I think that's going to be a good number for us. Yeah, just kind of looking at the width of what we have here. I think that's going to work out well for us. All right, so we do need to rotate this correctly, and I believe that would be 11¼ on that. So now we have a nice flat edge there, and there. All right, let's freeze our transform and get rid of our history on this. And we do have a couple of extra faces that we don't need down here on the bottom. So we'll get rid of those. Let's grab all these verts and we'll move them up to the bottom of the screw, and we'll just scale those in a little bit, and we'll worry about the bottom of this later on. All right, so in our top view, and it is important that you're in the top view here when you do this, we're going to grab our split tool, and we're going to split all the way across there, and across there, and then we'll go across those ones. And now we can grab all of these faces and get rid of them. Okay, and that's what we're left with. And as I look at this, I think that is going to be a good size for that. If we go back and look at our reference, again, I'm just kind of looking at this width right here. So I think that'll work out well for us. All right, we've got a couple extra edges in here that we don't necessarily need. So let's go ahead and get rid of all of these. It does help the curve up there, but I don't think it's going to be necessary for us. So let's go ahead and hit Control Delete on those. And I think that'll round out just fine on those. We can take a look at it here if we want. It is getting a little bit on the straight side as I look at the reference here. So let's take a look at that beforehand. And I think that is actually helping out the shape a little bit. So for now, let's go ahead and we'll just leave those in there. Let's get this down. So we'll go ahead and grab this edge, and I'm going to extrude this down. Before I do that, though, we've altered so much information right here. I'm going to hit the 3 key just to make sure that everything is actually working correctly and that we don't have a bunch of extra points in there. So it seems to be okay. We may have to come back and adjust a few things, but let's go ahead and run with it and see what we get. All right, so I'm going to grab that whole edge, I'm going to extrude, and I'm going to pull that straight down. And let's go to our top view. And in our extrude edge node, we're going to go to this offset. I'm going to type in something like 0.1. And we can see the taper that we're getting there, maybe 0.12. That looks pretty good. So the only thing that we're lacking here is we're not getting the distance that we need right here. And it looks like some of these are off just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and grab all of these and snap those in line just so we have a nice even distribution of points on there. That offset command is a real time saver, but sometimes it will throw your geometry off a little bit. All right, so those all look good. Let's grab these, and I'm going to scale these in the X direction just a little bit, just to kind of even out that spacing right there. Okay, so we'll grab those ones, and we'll pull those in a little bit as well. All right, so we do have this weird kind of arc pattern on this, and that was just because we grabbed this arc shape and extruded that down. So I'll just grab that whole entire shape right there, and I'm going to hold down the V key to snap to point, and I'll just pull that all the way down. And then I'll pull it up just a little bit, just to keep it encompassed inside of this shape right here. All right, so that all looks good. Now what we can do is we'll go in and get this rounded shape that we need here. And I think what I might do for that is I think I might get rid of these edges right here. Just to kind of help that bevel out. We'll resplit all of this when we're done, but I think it'll really help out our shape as far as our bevel is concerned if we get rid of this information that is so close to this corner right here. So that gives us a nice wide open area right here that we can utilize to get that in there. All right, I'm going to go ahead and hit the 3 key again just to make sure that everything is okay and everything looks good. And then let's go ahead and grab all of these edges. And we'll do a bevel on there. And I'll go ahead and do 2 segments. And we kind of need to take a look at how big that bevel needs to be. And if you think of it not being there and this just being a plus sign, looks like it's about 1/3 of the way in to right there. And so that's kind of what we want to duplicate. So let's make this just a little bit bigger. Let's try 1. Okay, and that looks just a little bit big. I think we might be just a hint large on that. Of course, that might be about 1/3. Let's go just a little bit smaller, maybe like 0.9. All right, I think that will work nicely for us. All right, now, of course, down below here, anytime you do a bevel on an open edge, Maya's going to create these extra faces. So let's go ahead and delete those. And let's grab this edge right here, and I'm going to go to Mesh, and I'm going to fill that hole in. All right, so we do have a few extra pieces in here that we need to deal with. We need to clean up all of this information, but I think that takes care of the overall primary form. I think that we can grab these and pull them down just a little bit. They were looking a little bit high there. All right, so I think that takes care of the overall primary form. So in our next lesson, we'll go ahead and finish this up, and we'll finish up the rest of the bridge. So I'll see you in a little bit. In this lesson, we're going to finish up all the pieces that make up the bridge to our guitar. All right, so here's where we left off with our screw head. Now, let's go ahead and clean up a little bit here. We've got this little mess going on, and I think we could simplify this quite a bit as well. We do have a straight line going here and here, and so I do think that this edge is going to be useless for us pretty much. I don't think that information is actually needed in there, nor is it right here, because it's a fairly straight line from there. So I think what I'll go ahead and do is just snap these to those ones, and then we'll merge them in a second here. All right, so let's go like that, and we'll merge those together. So that really cleans up this down here. This is a little messy right here. And so I think we should determine what is important to us up here. I don't think this edge is going to do much for us. I do like how this one is kind of holding that shape though. I think that's going to be important for us. Now these ones coming right here, we do have an end gone right here that we need to fix, obviously. And I don't think that these points being so wide is really doing anything for us. So I'm going to merge those together. And now I'm just kind of looking at our form here, and I'm seeing, what is this doing? How is this supporting our shape? And so I rotate around. We have a nice curve down here, nice curve there. So I think this curve right here is essential, and obviously this one is. And so I think that is going to be the solution for us right there. All right, so I'll go ahead and do this one, and then I'll do the other two off camera. So we'll move that one to there, that one to there. Snap him, snap those, and then we'll grab those and merge them. And then we grab this edge and delete it. And we grab these 2 points and we merge those together. All right, I think that'll work well for us. All right, so I'll do these other two off camera and I'll come right back. All right, so those are all merged now, the same way we did that first one. So let's go ahead and delete our history, and let's see if we can't get our bevel on here just to hold all these. As you can see that we have, quite a squishy mess here when this thing smooths out. So let's go ahead and select everything that we need. So we'll need all of these corners and everything running through this top edge. Grab that corner. You can't double click on the bottom one because it's an N-gon, and so it won't select those. So most of these we're just going to have to grab manually. A lot of clicking is what it is. All right, so I think that is about everything that we need. We'll go ahead and put a bevel on there. And we need to make a few choices at this point in time. First off, let's take a look at the size of our bevel. All right, and that size looks good. I think that's pretty close to what we're after here. And the choices that we need to make are these. If I put 2 segments on that bevel, every one of these inside corners we're going to have to fix like we usually do with this butterfly shape. We're going to have to take them down to this corner, and we're going to add a little bit of a pucker to the surface right here when we do that. So that's not a good thing. These corners look great. That's fine. If I do one, I get a triangle in those corners, and you can see that I get a big N-gon in this one right here. So the problem with this, and the terrible truth of this, is if I smooth this, this surface looks great. There is no puckering on here. And honestly, this is the best that this surface is possibly going to look. We do have an N-gon right here. So you have to check your production pipeline. Can you leave a triangle right here? Can you have an N-gon right here? Everybody says N-gons are bad. However, if they're not deforming and your pipeline can handle it, some render engines will just spit it out. It won't render it. But if your pipeline can handle it, this is the best that this is going to look right here. Now, there are a few things that we can do to take care of this. One of those would be to split from here to there, and then to there. And what we're left with is if we delete these and we go from this one to that one instead, okay, you'll notice that gives us 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we would need to figure out something in this region as well. But we're making kind of an odd polygon right here, is what it amounts to. It's kind of caving in on itself. And if I hit the 3 key, you can see it gets a little tighter right there, and we get just a little bit of a pucker on that surface right there. So not the best solution. It does turn it into a quad. And when you're this far away from it, you can just barely tell. You probably wouldn't notice if I didn't point it out. So let's back up out of there and let's look at a different solution to this. All right, so let's get back to where we had just those in there, just those guys. And before we proceed with what I'm about to do, I'm going to go ahead and split all of this information down here, so we can get quads through all of this. I'll just put a nice big square right in the middle there. All right, let's hit 3, make sure everything's smooth, okay, all is good. So here's kind of a crazy way to take care of this. Now, we're going to assume at this point in time that we probably are going to smooth this once, at least once at render time, because we're still pretty faceted around the edges here. Now, if we're seeing it this small, probably not. But, you know, if you want to get this close to it, you're going to see all of that faceting in there. And so we're going to smooth this at least once at render time. Now, I'm going to go ahead and delete my history on this, and I am going to bring this in just a little bit more. So I'll just extrude that edge and bring it in. So now that loops in just a little bit better. All right, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to go to mesh and I'm going to do a smooth on this. And you see that actually physically changes the amount of geometry that we have. This is an actual smooth, not like the smooth that we do at render time. But check out what it did with our Ngon right here. It looks perfect now. So does our little triangles that we had in there. So we're rendering the same amount of geometry at this point, as if we were to smooth this once at render time. And this looks great. And it's still not a ton of polygons. We've got quite a few of these on our surface, but if you see it up this close, you're going to need to get that information in there. And this surface looks great. There's nothing I would change on this one. All right, so let's jump over here real quick, and we'll go to our side view. And we're going to take this and we're going to dupe it, and we're going to bring it over here. We have two different screws. Again, one, this one will hold all of our pickups in place, and then this one is used for everything else, just in varying degrees of size. So we're going to pull that down, and we can pretty much make this screw out of that one. All right, so there you go. All right, so those are done. Let's bring our other elements back in here. And these, we'll go ahead and just freeze the transform there. And we'll take all of these and we'll bring all of those back to 0 where we modeled them, because they were in alignment on those. So now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll save this file out, and we're going to start building our normal file with all of these pieces in it in the next lesson. So I'll see you guys there.